Well, what a dynamic presentation. So I think you're all motivated now, and tomorrow Albania has 24 more entrepreneurs. So I hope they don't go all into tourism now, so you have a lot of competition coming up there. Right, thank you again, Nicola. Nicola mentioned how important coding is, and that's actually the topic of our next presentation from Moritz Stuckler. He's a software developer, and he has a very interesting headline for his speech, "No need to wear pants." We talked about it, and I said, well, will you take off your pants on the stage? He said, no. But I'll explain what it's all about. Anyway, it's about coding, and computer science is for everyone. It's his message. So, Moritz, please, your stage. See? Pants.
Good morning. First, I have to excuse myself because I'll be looking at my phone a lot. Actually, I was supposed to read my notes from down there, but it's not working, so I'll be looking at my phone. I know it's a little rude, but I hope you'll forgive me. Also, my talk is not as rehearsed as many of the other talks here because I don't do this professionally. As I said, I work I was introduced to work as a software developer, so not as a professional speaker or anything, so bear with me. Yeah, I'm from Germany. And this is my first time in Albania, actually. So for me, it was really hard to prepare this talk to be held in a country that I don't know a lot about, because I only know stuff about Albania from Wikipedia and from some very weird YouTube videos that I found. So before I start to talk, I actually want to get an idea of your state of mind and what you guys have as a background and what you think. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I ask you to raise your hands if you feel that you should do that. So, oh yeah, another thing I need to say. I'm going to be not very precise with all the vocabulary. So everything I say today will be under the name of computer science. Actually, there's more subgenres. I'll talk about computer engineering and stuff like that, but today everything's computer science. So if you're studying already or something, sorry, it's not going to be very precise. So, questions. How many of you have already considered to work in IT later once you're done? You just show your hands. Okay, thanks. And the second question, how many of you actually do or will, I don't know, I mean, if you can foresee that it will happen in the future, some kind of computer science, IT related education in school? Oh, actually there's a couple of them. Interesting. Because this would look bad in Germany as well, so no worries. Germany is pretty backwards in that way as well. And also another question maybe, can you just throw me some words, just scream them out at me, no need to raise your hands, of associations that you have when you hear the word computer science? Just scream them at me. What do you think of? Nerds? Good one. More? Full stack. Sorry? Full stack? Good one. All right. What was that? Blockchain. Okay. Nice. So these are actually... What? Bitcoin. Oh yeah, nice one. So these are actually all pretty recent terms, so that's pretty good. I didn't know, what I was to expect here, but this seems like you have actually a good idea of what's going on in computer science. So thanks for this insight and for giving me an idea of what you think about. Now I'll tell you a little bit more about me. I'm Moritz. I'm 29 years old. I grew up in Nuremberg, Bavaria. Oh, that's actually because I'm 29. I grew up in Nuremberg, Bavaria, which is in the south of Germany. It looks a little bit like this. And in school, I sucked at math and physics. I'm not proud of it, it's just a fact. This is actually, oh, sorry, that was one too far. This is actually my year report from grade 9. I know you probably won't be able to read it, but if you look at mathematics and physics, 5, that's like an E if you grade from A to F. So in Germany it's 1 to 6, so this is like horrible. I actually failed this year, so I had to repeat the school year, 9th class, because I was so bad in math and physics. And after graduating school, so I managed graduate school, but after graduating it, I did not go to university right away. Only when I was 24, I decided to study computer science, and I studied technical computer science, which is like, if you have all those genres of computer science, that's the one with the most math and physics in there, so don't ask me why I did it, but it worked. So technical computer science has a lot of electrical engineering. We are like the guys who work with hardware and software, and make them work together. And now I work as a front-end software developer in Hamburg. So if you don't know what a front-end is, that's fine. A front-end is the part of the software that users interact with or that users work with. So everything you click on, that's a front-end. That's what I built. Yeah, and just a second. Yeah. So, oh yeah, that's actually my degree. Never mind. So while I am still very much privileged and still represent a lot of cliches about computer science, there's also quite a lot of ways that I differ from the stereotype of a computer scientist. I was not a natural-born nerd who started programming at a very young age, so I didn't, spend my childhood in front of a computer. Or I did, but I didn't program, I did other stupid stuff. Also, I'm pretty sociable, I like to go out. I don't like to sit in front of a screen all day. It's actually not that enjoyable for me. I mean, sometimes it is, but I also like to go out and, see nature and meet friends and whatever. And as I already said, I always struggled with math and physics. I'm no natural-born scientist or whatever. And computer science was not my first career choice. So you remember that I said I started studying at 24. I actually became a trained journalist before that. But that turned out to be a dead-end road. So now I'm a computer scientist. And I started studying rather late. So I was 24 when I started, and most of my classmates or my fellow students were like 17 or something. So that was pretty weird, but it worked out very well in the end. And because of that, because I don't really fit the mold of a computer scientist perfectly, I hope I can give you something that you can take away and that maybe you see that you don't fit the mold as well, but that doesn't really matter because there is no mold. This is what I'm going to tell you. Oops, too far. So let's talk about who can work in computer science. You would think that actually only people who are good with math and physics, and I already told you I'm not good with it, so it's not true, trust me. Yes, there is a lot of math in computer science, and if you want to dig deeper, it's still there, so if you're a math nerd, go do computer science, it's awesome. Especially math with ones and zeros and all that stuff, it's the foundation of computer science. But thankfully, other people figured that out for us, the math part, and we don't need to think about it anymore when we work as a computer scientist. So you get by pretty much without a lot of math if you work as a developer every day. And yes, if you want to get a degree in computer science, there will be math in every computer science program. No way around it. Doesn't matter where you study it, there will be math. So if you want to study it, yeah, you should arrange yourself with math. You don't need to be good at it, but trust me, it's manageable. I did it, I was really bad. It's okay, you can get by. Math in a computer science program is different than math in your secondary school or whatever. So another thing that people might think about computer scientists is that only people who got a university degree in computer science can work in computer science. That's, again, not true. Actually, in Silicon Valley, which is the epicenter of the computer science world, no one cares about your degree anymore. Really, no one cares. All the big companies that we call them like GAFA, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, companies like that, they don't look for degrees anymore, they look for skill. So they actually abandon all that stuff. You can apply there without a degree. It doesn't matter as long as you have skill. And this is true for every computer science job that I ever applied to or that I ever saw. When you can convince people that you're skilled, it doesn't matter if you have a degree. So it's much more important what you have achieved in your free time than what kind of degree you have. These days it's actually popular to work in computer science, not after you didn't finish a university program, but after you did a computer science boot camp. These things are crazy hyped in Silicon Valley. You go into this boot camp for like 3 months, some go even longer, 6 months, and you get a like everyday, full-day education in computer science, and at the end of it, you can actually work in computer science, and it's pretty successful, so that's another way to go. But still, I don't want to say that studying computer science is not worth it. Studying computer science gives you an advantage because it gives you a very broad knowledge. When you did go to university for computer science, you can adapt a lot more to different surroundings. You can learn programming languages a lot faster if you once understood the foundations of computer science and the foundations of programming languages. So somebody who studied this stuff would probably be able to switch between programming languages very fast. So you can go from one company to another company, switch his tool set, and he wouldn't mind. So that's a little harder if you just, learned on the job. So yeah, it's possible. So studying computer science is still a great thing if you're interested in it. If you actually care about computer science, if you want to learn about math, if you want to learn about algorithms, do it. By all means, it's great, it's interesting. But what I want to tell you that you don't need to be a computer nerd since kindergarten to be able to work in computer science. Not at all. If you never touched a computer before, it doesn't matter. You all have exposure to computer science in terms of at least your phones or your tablets or whatever. So that's enough. If you really want to get into it, that's fine. You can do it. You don't need to be this nerd who's been doing this forever. I have fantastic colleagues at my work who did study law before, who actually became a retail salesperson before. It doesn't matter. They're still great programmers in their everyday job. And even if you're 30, you're 40, or you're 50, you can still start to work in computer science. Seriously, there are people who did it. And also this one is pretty, oh my god, it's always switching like 2 slides. This one is pretty important. You might think that only people who live in large cities can work in computer science, and that's absolutely not true. Actually, computer science is one of the few blessed jobs that you can do from anywhere in the world. So these days there are a lot of companies who actually do completely remote work. That means they don't have an office anywhere. They might have a couple hundred people distributed all over the world, but they don't have an office because they do everything remotely over the internet. So as long as you have internet connection and as long as you have a computer, you're good to go. You can work everywhere as a computer scientist. And this is a pretty good thing. Some people even take it to the extreme and travel while they work. So they basically travel, I don't know, they take a car and drive through Australia for a year and work on the side. So they set up their car and they work 8 hours a day and then they drive further. And they call themselves digital nomads. And it's actually a pretty popular lifestyle these days. So don't think that just because you're not in a big city, you can't work as a computer scientist. It's completely not true. So this is also the first, so you saw the title. The title is No Pants Needed, right? You may be asking why I said that or why I put that on the screen. This is one part of it. Because people who work in their own environment, like in their own office, in their own room, back at home, they don't actually need to wear pants. And it's it's a funny cliche about computer scientists. They like to sit at home without pants at work. It works, and it's not really false, but it's also not really true. It just depends. But this is just part of why I choose this title. So I'll get back to that later. This is what I was talking about with the pants. I'll just give you a second to read that. It's actually very exciting. So this is one of the risks of not working in an office. You might become this degenerate guy without wearing pants. I actually like that a lot because I used to work a lot at home for about 1.5 years, and there's more truth to it than you really want to know. So another thing that you might think about computer science is that you need to be male, you need to be not disabled, you need to be white, and you need to be straight to work in this field. And all of these are not true, again, you probably guessed by now. Yes, unfortunately, computer science is dominated by men. It's true, there are less women in computer science, but there are and have been great women in computer science. Starting from actually the first computer programmer. Today, when we say that, we actually talk about a woman, Ada Lovelace, in the 1840s. She actually wrote the first computer programs without having a computer by then. She just theoretically created programs on paper. Grace Hopper, she was the first one to actually create a compiler. It's like a translator for computer languages. Margaret Hamilton, who helped bring us to the moon, she wrote the code for the Apollo program, so we wouldn't have been on the moon without her. And just recently, this year, Katie Bauman, I don't know if you saw it, she's like 29 or 30 years old, and this year she was everywhere in the news because she wrote the algorithm to stitch together pictures from the first black hole that we could observe in the universe, and she actually wrote the code for it, so there are fantastic women in this field. Also, your looks, your gender or whatever doesn't really matter. Proven by the fact, and your skin color doesn't matter, proven by the fact that actually India and China are completely dominating this field. So if there were a problem with other skin colors in computer science, then people from India and China would have a lot more problems. But if you go into computer science, you will notice people from India and China are completely dominating this field. They put a lot more effort into it, they put a lot more money into it, and I think we've got to accept it. And also it's cool, these are great people, and if you work in computer science, you definitely will meet people from other nations, from other backgrounds, and that's one of the greatest things about this discipline. And this is where the second layer of my title from this talk comes in, no pants needed, as in you can wear a skirt, you can wear a dress, you can wear a traditional uniform, you can wear whatever you want in computer science. It doesn't really matter if you're wearing pants, if you're male, whatever. We take everyone in computer science. This one is also pretty popular, that you need like newest gear to work in computer science. Like you need a fancy MacBook, maxed out and whatever. It's not true. Nobody cares about what kind of computer you have. It doesn't matter if it's a Windows system, if it's a Linux system, if it's a Mac system. Nobody cares as long as you write good code. You can take a $200 computer, or you can take it even further. There's these days things called single board computers. You maybe heard of it. It's called Raspberry Pi. It's like this tiny little thing. It sets you back about $50, and it's like a full-blown computer. You can develop on this thing. No problem at all. So you go buy a little thing of hardware for $50. You need a monitor, and a mouse, and a keyboard, or whatever, but then you can start. So it doesn't really matter what kind of hardware you use or you have. And one of the reasons why computer science is so open and liberating with all these things that I just told you is we got a special weapon. We got a special weapon that no other discipline has, and this weapon is called open source. And this guy is actually using his pants, that's why I thought I was fitting. And open source is a mindset of sharing that is very prevalent in the computer science space. It means we share the source code, the product of what we do in computer science, the product that we create. Many times we just share it with the world for no cost at all. You will probably know some open source project, like you all have heard of Android on your phones. This is mostly open source software based on another operating system, Linux, or you might use a browser called Firefox, or you might, I don't know, have sometime created a blog in your life, and you probably use WordPress. All these are like open source projects that are great examples for collaboration and mindset within computer science. So you can build something and you put the source code online, and if people like it, they will use it, and it can become viral, just like a YouTube video. So if you look for, I don't know, the newest TikTok stuff or something like that, and the video explodes, that stuff happens in computer science as well. Sometimes, people create a small piece of code that's just genius, and in a couple of weeks, 1,000 developers in the world will use it, just because it's open source and they can use it. So open source enables everyone to become a successful programmer, and all that counts is your code. Nobody looks at your face. You don't even have to put a picture of you in there. It doesn't matter if you're a dog, because there's actually a saying that nobody knows you're a dog on the internet. So you could be anyone. As long as you write good code and you put it up for everyone to use, you can become like a little famous in the computer science world. And open source really shines for smaller components. The big ones that I just mentioned are just like some very bright projects, but actually open source happens in a smaller space. So when I work, at my work, when we build something, we don't start from scratch. We don't write everything from scratch. We take parts that have been written by other people and have been refined and just use it and build our own products with it. Of course we do our own work on top of it, but we would never start from scratch. We just use parts, pick a part there, pick a part there, use a library from this guy, and we never know who the people behind it are. They might be, I don't know, they might be kids from Alaska, they might be an old guy sitting in Albania, I don't know. It's all possible and we don't really care about it. So you can make a name for yourself in the open source world really fast by giving back. So you might ask, so you take all this stuff, but it's kind of an imbalance of taking and giving. We actually give back to open source a lot. That means we contribute to other code that's been out there. We fix bugs, we fix errors, we fix documentation. I actually started out, when I got into open source, I started out fixing typos, like little kind of typos. There's a wrong in documentation overall, so not in code actually. I fixed documentation of other projects where I was like, hey, this is a wrong word, and that's how I started. And these days, I fix a lot of bugs in open source every day in other people's codes, and that makes me very happy, and it's a very cool thing to do, I guess, and it gives you a sense of purpose in the world. Yeah, so you can start contributing to open source projects right now, and just start with tiny stuff. You don't even need to be able to program. You can just look at this and be like, hey, I don't like this image, or this is actually a tutorial that's not very nice. I'm going to switch it around because I was in the situation, I didn't understand it. What can you do better? So this mindset of improving stuff that's already there is very central to open source development, and I think to computer science in general. So now I told you that all of you basically can work in computer science. I don't think there's anything keeping you from doing it now. And I really mean it. Like every single one of you can work in computer science. That's not exaggerated or that's not a lie. That's the fact. But maybe you're asking, why would you want to do this? Like, you know, what can you do with computer science actually? And I asked, in the beginning I asked this question, who of you considered or is considering to work in computer science? And that was actually a little trick question because it had a certain framing. It had a framing in terms of it requires a certain expectation of computer science. It requires this expectation that computer science is just like, you know, you got your disciplines like arts, languages, business, whatever. It's just examples. Could be anything. And you got computer science. So if you answered the question, you probably had this model in your head and you thought about, hey, do I really want to be in that column or do I not want to be in that column? And what I want to tell you is that it's totally fine. This is not going to change. This is true. You can do that. But I think this is not how computer science will look like in the future and what the future of the discipline is. So maybe you can think about another way of how to look at computer science. So again, maybe think of it more like this. This is how I think it will become in the future. Computer science will be a foundation for all other disciplines. It doesn't matter what other discipline you work in. It will be a requirement, or it will make it better if you know computer science. So if you think the tech industry is desperate to hire computer programmers, then maybe you were right 15 years ago. Because today you're wrong. Actually, every industry is striving to hire computer programmers. I found a number, it wasn't very reliable, I couldn't find the source, I'm not going to put it on the screen or anything, but it said that 67% of IT jobs are actually outside the tech industry. And even though that number might be wrong, I think the general direction is correct. You don't have to work in computer science to work with computer science. You can work in any other field that you want. And what does this mean for you? It means that computer science doesn't need to be an end for itself. If you want to do computer science because you like math, and you like computer science, and you like algorithms, it's fine, do it. But I'm probably not going to be able to tell you anything new about it. You already set your mind to do it. It's fine. But what I want to talk about is that if you don't fit in this category, you don't actually like math, and you don't actually think you belong in computer science, that you can still work in computer science. You don't need to love computer science to work in it. It can just be a tool for you. It can help you. Look at computer science like a tool in your belt, that can help you with whatever your real passion is or you really want to do. And I found this horrible, horrible metaphor that I'm going to tell you anyway. I mean, it's pretty brittle and stupid, but I think it somehow fits. So if you look at computer science like a knife, and you study computer science, you get a very sharp knife in the end. You get like a scalpel that you can do surgery with. But maybe you don't want to become a surgeon at all. Like, you want to open up a sandwich shop, and you don't really need a scalpel. You just need a regular knife. Like, every other butter knife will do just fine. And this is kind of representing, I think, of how we should look at computer science. It should be a tool, and it should not be an end in itself. If that's your thing, if you want to have it as an end in itself, and you think, you know, it deserves its spot, then that's fine, you can do it as well. But all the other people, computer science does not need to be the center of your life if you do it. You don't need to identify as a computer scientist. You can identify as whatever you want and still work with computer science. So, this is what I'm trying to make you take away from today, is do computer science plus X. You can be something else and work in computer science. You can be a lawyer and automate all the same stupid letter that you send out every day. You can automate it. You can be a farmer and use a drone, computer vision to change the crops that you put out in your fields. You can be a politician and digitize the way your government works, so you save money, paper, and become more accessible to other people. You can be a journalist and use web scraping and data visualization to prove your opinions that you put out. You can actually be a blacksmith and use digital 3D modeling to simulate and optimize the pieces you create. You can be a teacher and create animations, movies, a website about complex topics that you teach in school. It doesn't really matter. So, the last thing that I want to answer is, how can I get started? Because maybe some of you thinking now, hey, this actually sounds kind of useful. Well, how should I start that? There's a couple ways to do that. First thing is the Elite Academy that the guys are doing here who are organizing this. You can sign up online for their courses. They actually do classes here in place. You can obviously go to the universities here. That's fine if you want to study that and get a degree. Perfect. Or you can go online and start teaching yourself. There's a couple of places you can do that. For example, I wrote down Codecademy, udemy.com, CS50, which is like a course by Harvard University, or you can just use Google and YouTube. You're not stupid, you know how to use it. You look up everything on YouTube. You can look up on YouTube how to learn whatever you want to do with computer science. So, this is it. Just to get back to the talk title, you can work in computer science, and it doesn't matter if you wear a skirt, pants, or whatever you want to wear. Thank you.